according to the computer. Great. I hope that we are already live on Facebook. Let me see here. And it seems so perfect. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is Hani from EducationUSA Czech Republic. And today we have a special guest, Emma. Emma used to be teaching, like English teaching assistant in Moldova, but now she is back in the United States. And today we're going to talk about student athletes in the United States. So Emma has her personal experience, so she's going to share her knowledge and her experience with you. And because this is a live stream, feel free to write your questions underneath, or you can then write us email. Okay, great. You can write us email and we'll be happy to answer all of your questions. So as I said, I work for EducationUSA Czech Republic, which is basically a network that works with students who would like to apply to American high school, or like it can be high school, I can help you with that, but mostly universities, so university colleges. And I provide free, accurate, and comprehensive information, and I can help you, go step by step throughout that application process, and I do it for free. So if you are considering applying to a university in the United States, I am the person to reach out to. And on that other slide that we have, it says that I work in an advising center in Prague, but we have other advising centers all around the Czech Republic. So if you're, if you live close to Ústí, there is one in Ústí, one in Plzeň, one in Brno, and one in Ostrava. And one is very close or very soon to be open in Olomouc. So feel free to visit those. Or you can definitely find us online. You can get in touch with me through email under advisor@fulbright.cz. And if you're in Prague, you're going to find me at the Fulbright Commission in Karmelická Street. So stop by because except for like advising and helping you out, we have other services such as we do seminars and webinars. So like this one, isn't there? Yeah, there should be one more slide, Emma, please. Thank you, great. So we do seminars and webinars like this one. There were some webinars or live streams about how to choose the right university. Also, we talked about interviewing for universities, and we had some extracurricular activity stream. So feel free to watch them there on YouTube or on our Facebook page. And in that advising center in Prague, we have a nice library. So if you decide to apply to the United States, you might want to check out our SAT or ACT books so you can practice for those standardized tests. And we also offer consultations. So feel free to post your questions underneath. And if you feel like you need more information, you can reach out to me even through social media under the handle EducationUSA Czech, and just say, like I have these and these questions, and I'll be happy to meet with you either in person or online. And if you're super interested in studying in the United States, just scan the QR code and subscribe to our monthly newsletter, because I usually put like news from the US higher education system, but also like to-do lists. So what to do if you are in the 3rd grade applying to the US. So what's there for the month of May to do. So this is about EducationUSA, and now I'm going to pass it over to Emma, who is going to talk about student athletes in the United States. Like, luckily this year I had the opportunity to work with Czech student athletes who applied to the United States. One of them actually got accepted to Harvard College, and he received the athletic scholarship. So if you guys have any questions, definitely reach out, and I'll be happy to connect you with Michal. And yes, that would be great. And Emma, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for sharing your experience.
Yeah, great. Thank you for having me. So Just to introduce myself at first, I ran cross country and track at Franklin and Marshall College, which is located in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I did that only my first 2 years of school. And then there I also majored in history and Russian literature and language. Before that, I ran for 3 years at Fenton High School, which is in my hometown of Fenton, Michigan. I decided to keep running in college once I found out I would be able to, because it seemed like a great opportunity to meet new people and continue what I love doing for another few years. Once I never thought I'd be able to play sports in college, but once I found out that it was kind of not easy, but there were a lot of opportunities to, I got really excited and really was looking forward to doing that. And for me, it wasn't one of my top goals when choosing a college, but it was still important for me when choosing my college. So to give a little bit of an explanation on the different athletic organizations in the US, the NCAA, the National Collegiate Athletic Association, this is the main one. When you think of universities and like college sports in the US, this is usually what you're going to think of. So there's another two programs. The other main one that you might see schools for is the NAIA. I won't be talking too much about that. And the third is, I think it's the NCJAA or NJCAA, which is for junior colleges. And this is like considered community colleges in the US. So usually 2-year degree programs. So I don't think many people will be looking at those. And then the NCAA offers 3 different levels of competition. So my next few slides, I'll talk a little bit about that. But this is Division I, Division II, and Division III. So D1 and D2 will offer scholarships for athletics. Division III won't. But I'll show you some statistics. One that I found interesting is that nearly 1 in 6 students at a D3 school are all involved in athletics. And it's about 1 in 23 for D1. D2 will be somewhere in the middle. So as you can see at D3 schools, a lot of students will continue on playing sports. And that's the kind of school I went to, was a Division III. So if you can see, this shows some more statistics on the different divisions. So as you'll see, these are the amount of schools that have Division I. So 350 schools are considered D1, and then D2 has a little bit less, and then D3 has the most.
And so how do you decide which division are you?
Yeah, so usually if you just go on the athletic website, they'll tell you. If you ever see what kind of competitions they're in, usually, like, for example, if you play basketball, and in the US, we have a lot of basketball games playing, it'll be like D1 athletics. They'll announce it. Usually, if you're thinking of the big schools, like you mentioned, Harvard is D1. Almost sometimes the school size gives it away a little bit. A lot of the bigger name schools you think of are all considered D1. Like for me, the ones that people talk about in Michigan are always like Michigan State, University of Michigan. Smaller schools like liberal arts colleges are usually Division III. Like, I'll continue talking more about it. Division II is kind of just somewhere in the middle. It's usually got like slightly smaller than D1, not as much focus on like academics as D3, I would say. That's like a good generalization. But then, yeah, so as I mentioned, like the students who are athletes and the percentage of student athletes in the division. So this will kind of show you right here, you can kind of see some of the scholarships. I'll come back to this website too, because I think it's like really helpful and like summarizes the information in a good way. This is right off of the NCAA's website, which makes it really nice if you're looking for resources.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll see like 50%, 57% of athletes in Division I get scholarships, 60% in D2 receive athletic aid, and then there's none for Division III.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only considered partial scholarships or D1 or in D2 usually. If someone's looking to go and become a professional athlete, those are the kinds of athletes you see getting full rides to school that covers like academics and the cost of living. A lot of times, especially for Division II, it might only be like a quarter or like a fourth of your academic costs. And then D3 is often considered you're just doing the sport because you love the sport, not so much you think you're going to become a professional athlete. But usually those schools do offer a lot of academic scholarships as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go back to this slide a little bit because I know I have more information kind of on here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can kind of tell the difference in divisions just looking at the basketball courts. So the top one is a Division I school. It's University of Michigan. You see like the huge screens, all of this like electronics, a lot of money, how high the stadium goes back. Like there's a lot of people there. Mm-hmm. Division II, it's still nicer, like more renovated. And this is Saginaw Valley State in Michigan as well. Mm-hmm. There's quite a few people in the stadiums. This is Division III, which was my school. It's a little bit older, a little bit outdated. This picture doesn't show it that much, but it's definitely not as nice as the other two. Like in the middle, I don't know if you can see, but in the kind of the left corner, their mascot is the cardinal, and they have a huge like entrance. That's the cardinal face. Like, I don't know if you can see it.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Usually like there's a big entrance for students. Franklin and Marshall, they just kind of walk in. But I think, yeah, it's like the information says D1 has the largest budget dedicated to athletics. These schools are recruiting the best high school athletes. Athletics is like a major time commitment for them. So you do a lot of traveling. Mm-hmm. A lot of times you're traveling, sometimes even across the country. People are hopping on planes, going to games. Mm-hmm. So it's a big deal. For example, for basketball, at least the entire month of March, there's a huge basketball tournament for college athletics. So they could often be out of school almost the entire month.
So how does it work when you are like full-time student and you study a major, but then you are there on an athletic scholarship? So you have to play that sport, for that university, you have to represent them. So how does it, like, is it combinable? Like, can you combine it together and still be good student as well as good athlete?
So luckily for Division I, they usually hire a lot of people who their job is just dedicated to helping these athletes with their academics. Mm-hmm. That's not really provided as much in the other two divisions, mm-hmm. but because D1 schools know athletes are traveling so much, they try and do as much as they can to help them. Mm-hmm. For example, I have a friend who ran cross country at University of Michigan, and they provided a lot of support for him. So he even graduated with honors. Mm-hmm. I think for all of like the people who are athletes, like kind of the time commitments, and people are very good at time management. Mm-hmm. And I would say that almost becomes better when you're in college because you have to be so good at managing your time. Like that's why I noticed like my first 2 years is I was much better at time management because I was running and I knew I had these other commitments. Mm-hmm. So for the D1 schools, I think these athletes are just very like regimented people where it helps. And there are more people there to support them. Like you're doing homework on planes, in the hotel rooms, like any chance you get. It does depend on the sport. A lot of D1, American football especially, They're just known to go there and eventually go like pro within a year or two and not spend all 4 years at university. But other sports like with cross country, track, swimming, for example, I think those athletes are very like diligent about work and usually graduate with honors and have like a higher GPA than the average student body. And then like that's D1s where they might get a full scholarship, but it's still very hard to, and I'll point that out later. D2 always falls somewhere in the middle, but I'll talk more about D3 as well.
And so do you have to have any like achievements before you apply to a D1, you know, like college or university?
So depending on the sport, you might have to be one of the top athletes. In the US, it's in the States. For Europe, it might be like in the country.
Okay.
Some of the schools will post time standards for a scholarship. I don't think I can find one at the moment, but for like cross country or track, it's kind of easy. If you go directly to the school's website, it might have time standards to meet to possibly get a scholarship, which is really helpful. For basketball, a lot of it's just like all of the scores, all of the statistics you have that you can share with coaches. But I know my school, we had quite a few international students on the track team. But that's because we were Division III, so it's very easy kind of to join if you want to. For example, we had students from, I remember like Costa Rica and Bulgaria on our team.
Great.
Yeah, and if you're looking for scholarships, D2 schools will still offer scholarships. This won't fully cover the cost of tuition, but it is nice. And if you have good academics, they will like really help you get more scholarships as well. And this won't be as much of a time commitment. You'll mostly be traveling in the same region of the country with a few trips maybe outside. If you're looking to go to school in the US and you have like a really high priority for academics, I would say D3 schools are really nice for this. You won't get any money from athletics, but I know my school in particular offered a lot of financial aid, and a lot of D3 schools will offer a lot of aid for academics. This also has the smallest time commitment. Technically, you're supposed to be at 20 hours a week of limit for like how much time you can spend with athletics. And D3 schools will prioritize that. The other two divisions, you might go over still those 20 hours. And then something important that I forgot to mention is that if you are like a woman athlete, there's something called Title IX. So they try and have the same amount of numbers of men and women participating in athletics. So a lot of times the cross country or track teams, if you're not the best runner, will still let you, it's called walking on to a team. If you kind of join the team at last minute or like when the semester school year starts, you can walk on and join the team at a D1 school without a scholarship or anything, but you'll still be a part of the team.
Great.
And it's because they want to balance the men and women, so it helps a little bit. Yeah, but kind of this will be helpful information. So you kind of see the NCAA has more than $2 billion annually in athletic scholarships. So the average amount an athlete will need to cover them out of like after athletic scholarships is about $10,000. So you're still paying quite a bit, but if you have good academics, it will help. And then this is just interesting. So in D1 schools, only football, men's and women's basketball, volleyball, gymnastics, and tennis guarantee full scholarships. And other sports will give partial scholarships. So the example I've given here is that track and field will have 18 full scholarships, but then they often split that between 40 to 50 athletes. So like every athlete might get $10,000 instead of $20,000. So I would say if you're looking to play sports in school, like make sure you love the sport make sure you love the sport. Don't prioritize getting money because it is hard. Also, you have to worry about getting injured. In D1 schools, if you get injured, you might lose your scholarship. Okay. So that's very important to keep in mind. Is that like they will do their best to keep you healthy. But I know, for example, track and cross country, people are injured all of the time. So make sure you're prioritizing like loving the sport and wanting to be involved in that if you're looking to play in college. Yeah, because as you see from this chart, only 2% of high school athletes will like earn a full or partial NCAA scholarship. So it's such a small number. As I mentioned before, a lot of students are involved in D3 sports. So most of them won't even qualify for a scholarship.
So, and we mentioned the NCAA website. So usually when you are looking for like doing sports at American University and yet studying, do you register through the NCAA or do you do common application as well, or do you do both?
So you still do common application for all of your apps. I will say, depending on the kind of school, usually the college coach will put in a good word for you with the admissions department. So if you're a good athlete, it will help your chances of getting in. If your academics might not meet the standards of the school. But I think the NCAA does have different standards for different divisions. I think some of these are academic. Yeah, I would go to the website and find out more about that because since I was D3, we didn't have to deal too much with it. I'll go to it very quickly, but there are tons of resources. So, you will still need to register with the NCAA.
Yeah. See it. All right.
I think, And then just here's some resources. So there are different rules on when you can contact coaches. So coaches can only contact students on January 1st of their sophomore year. So I think that's like, second year. I'm not sure.
The second year of high school here. Yeah.
So this is when coaches can only reach out to students. Students can technically reach out to coaches sooner, but that's very early. And then beginning August 1st of the third year, students can receive verbal scholarship offers and you can officially visit campuses. So you won't have anything on paper, but you might know the amount of money you'll get. And then during the senior year, there's something called the National Letter of Intent Signing Day. That's where you commit to the university, like you see how much aid you can get to be recruited in the first place. So this is just a list, like a few resources where you can see they've created just like a database of all of the different ways you can be recruited for schools. Like you'll fill out a profile, put in your statistics. A lot of times they will ask for academics as well. And you can kind of fill all of that out. You can even add videos a lot of times, like show a reel of your athletics and performances. I filled one out when I was in school. I can't remember through which site, but coaches did often contact me through that. So it is a good resource. And I wasn't like a stellar athlete. I was good in my like region and like my county, and then like not the best in the state to like very middle. So even if you're not an amazing athlete, like you can still be contacted through these websites.
Great.
Yeah, if you just Google like US recruitment student athletes, you'll find a lot of resources. For some, I just even emailed the coaches and it worked. Like they would respond quickly. A few times it happened where you all probably won't have this opportunity, that I would just be visiting a campus. I'd be like, send an email to the coach and they would often meet with me for like a brief conversation, often like a tour of their facilities. So I'd see like the indoor tracks, like even like the locker rooms sometimes.
Well, they can still do it online, you know, with the international students coming from the Czech Republic. I'm sure that with even the pandemics, you know, they switched everything online. So students may experience it as well.
Awesome. Yeah, it gets much easier now that everyone's used to the online.
Sure.
Yeah. I think you can see kind of here from these pictures, but sometimes if you go to the school's website, like if there's a school you know you want to go to, there will be like a recruitment form, and then you can just fill out like, this is like a prospective student athlete form. It's easy to get added to the email list. And I think something that's important to mention is making sure you're asking the right questions when you talk to the coaches. I think this is something I didn't do enough of, but kind of just asking like, what are your goals for the team? What academic support do you offer? Something that's also important is talking to the student athletes. You can see whether they're like happy, if they enjoy the coaching, if they feel like they've got a good like work-life balance with the academics and the athletics. And just like any question you can think of. I think something I wish I would have asked more of is like, what are your goals for the team? Like, what are their philosophies on training? I ended up in a program where I was a long distance runner and the coach focused primarily on middle distance runners. And so that often led to me getting injured. And that's like, and eventually why I stopped running was from injury. So I was like, asking good questions are important. Just like, especially talking to the student athletes, I think most people would be happy if you did reach out to them on social media. They'd be super happy to respond, like, especially Division III schools, if you're reaching out to a student athlete there, they would be like extremely happy and like to respond to you. Some of the Division I schools, it might be hard to reach them, but I'm sure they would help you as well. Yeah. You can even find lists of questions to ask sometimes as well. Am I still?
You're not sharing anymore.
Okay, thank you. That's what. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, great.
So, yeah, like this is kind of, these are all like great questions to ask. I think you can find lists if you have a hard time coming up with questions by yourself. So for me, I know like sometimes in the moment I would have a hard time asking questions, but as you asked earlier, just asking for like what the academic support is like, just ask, like, if you're scared that it might be too hard to balance athletics and academics, ask what support they provide. I know a lot of times there might be tutors at certain schools for classes. This question was interesting, like, what are the housing requirements for student athletes? Do players live together? In my experience, a lot of D1 schools would put athletes together from like my friends I've talked to, or if you weren't with someone who was running or playing the same sport, they might be placed with a different student athlete. In my case, my school did not want to put student athletes together who were playing the same sport. So for example, I was rooming with someone who played lacrosse. And then a lot of swimmers were also rooming with people who played lacrosse, or that would happen very often because it would be someone who does have a similar lifestyle where they're constantly going to practice.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually a lot of student athletes do live together with people who play the same sport.
Mm-hmm.
After my sophomore year, I kept living with people who ran cross country. And then I think for running, I think a good question to ask is like long-term goals.
Mm-hmm.
An answer I really liked from one of the coaches for a school I didn't go to was saying they weren't set on just winning a conference, but they wanted to keep people running for life. Because running, you get injured so quickly. Their goal was to make sure athletes were staying healthy and could keep running well beyond their college. And they didn't start to hate it.
That's nice.
Yeah, so I think those are all good questions. And that's like something important, I think, to ask. So kind of I can just keep talking about my experience a little bit. For me, it was nice. A lot of times, if a student's involved in a fall sport, you're coming to campus earlier than the rest of the student body. So I moved in, I think, a week earlier. And that whole week was just dedicated to practice and getting ready for competition. Like the first meet was the Saturday after the first week of school. So it's like very quick. And this is like a great bonding experience. Because I was on the East Coast, it's very easy to travel between states. So my college was in Pennsylvania, but we traveled to like Maryland, New York, like Pennsylvania we stayed in most of the time, but New Jersey even. It's like a nice opportunity to kind of get to see more of the country that you might not get to see. There's a lot of different social life that's involved with cross country. Like usually like there's like dinners, like most teams will eat dinner together as a team because it's right after practice. So entering the dining hall, it'd be like all of the swimmers are having dinner together, all the tennis players. So it's kind of really nice to have this group of friends with you. And it's a great way to meet older students. So a lot of times these people might have taken the same classes that you have. So it's a great resource almost to ask for help on different classes, to learn about different professors. And while that's still possible if you're not a student athlete, it does make it a lot easier when you're kind of forced to hang out with these group of people. Like, for example, like, I mean, the best way possible, because it was like right from the get-go, I had people I could ask for help. I didn't have to worry about making friends and finding these resources on my own. They were almost like already provided for me. And something that is fun is usually on like breaks from school, we would like take a team trip. So for example, for spring break in the spring, we went to Virginia and spent a whole week just training there instead of Pennsylvania, because at the time, like Pennsylvania is very snowy. Instead, we're on like the Atlantic Ocean running. And then like we had a big meet at the end of that. That was like further away, which is really nice. It's just like constantly good bonding experiences as well. And just like kind of a good time. Like it did keep me much more organized my first 2 years because I was so busy with running every day. Like, for example, my schedule was usually having classes maybe 8:30 to 4:30. Occasionally during the week, the rest of the time would be studying, and at 4:30 every day, practice for 2 hours. Saturday mornings, like practice. And then we would always eat dinner together after. Or the city I was in was Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and we had a farmer's market downtown. So usually after Saturday practice, we would go to the farmer's market, get like coffee and donuts, and it's like a really like nice time.
That's great that you gain so many friends, you know, through sports. Like I'm sure you can do it even through academics and clubs and so forth. But that sport, really, you spend so much time together that that's friends for life, for sure. Yeah.
I will say the benefits of like the school I went to was that there was a better balance of like athletics, social life, and sports, academics. So for example, my school classes had to end at 4:30. Sometimes universities will have classes at night or any time of the day, but for my school, classes had to end at 4:30. So students could go to practice if they wanted. And usually it didn't conflict with a lot of club meetings or anything. Like, I was still involved in an environmental club, like a Russian and Eastern European club. I hosted a radio show.
One year I was involved in student government. Oh yeah.
It made it like very easy, and that is one of the benefits of D3. Like, you might not get a scholarship, but you can continue doing a sport kind of at a low stakes environment and kind of just take advantage more of all of the resources of the school.
Well, so as long as there is still an opportunity to get some other kind of scholarships, such as either merit-based or need-based or either tuition waiver, like, sure, yeah, that's a great option how to combine everything, like the social life, the sport, the academics. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like I would say, yeah, it's like kind of great to find like all these opportunities and take advantage of them. I didn't talk about the NAIA, but they do offer scholarships too. There's just not many of those schools as well, and I don't know too much about them. But usually you can be performing at like a D2 or D3 level, so not be as good of an athlete and still get a good scholarship.
Okay.
So are there any questions in the chat?
Not right now. I feel, is this the last slide, right? We are heading up to, yes. Yeah. So I think that we covered everything. If there are questions, like, to all of you who are listening, feel free to write them underneath the live stream, or if we switch to that last slide, there's going to be my email address. And if you have questions for Emma, I'll be happy to just like forward it to her, and she will be able to answer it more professionally, because I have, even though I studied in the United States, I did not do athletic scholarships. So I can definitely get you in touch with Emma or with Michal, who was accepted to Harvard with athletic scholarships. So if that is everything, thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing everything you know about athletic scholarships. And again, it was very nice meeting you, and thank you for everyone who was listening.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them too. Yeah. Perfect. Through email or like, yeah.
Great. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. All right.